What was revealed in classified UFO briefings to Congress and Pentagon? On July 23, the New York Times released an article describing classified UFO briefings delivered to the US Congress and the Pentagon by Dr. Eric Davis, a prominent astrophysicist researching out-of-the-box scientific phenomena since 1996. The authors of the New York Times story, Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, provided few details of the briefings other than Davis' sensational claim that UFOs, aka UAPs, involved, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this earth, end quote. The New York Times article was quickly picked up by other major media such as the Huffington Post, Popular Mechanics, and popular news sites that included Yahoo News. More recently, Scientific American called for a resumption of scientific studies on UFOs in a very telling sign that mainstream scientists are finally paying attention. Senator Marco Rubio was informed about the classified briefing given by Dr. Davis to staffers from the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which Rubio currently heads. He subsequently arranged for his committee to give a bipartisan vote of approval, 14-1, for the intelligence community to write up a comprehensive report on UFOs/UAPs in 180 days after the bill's passage into law. Significantly, the Director of National Intelligence was instructed that, quote, the report shall be submitted in unclassified form but may include a classified annex, end quote. This means that the report is intended to be released to the general public. What is missing in the New York Times article and subsequent news stories are the precise details of what Davis briefed members of Congress and Pentagon officials. It can be assumed that the briefings involved information derived from a 15-page leaked transcript/summary of an October 16, 2002 conversation between Dr. Davis and Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson, who retired as the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency only a few months before the meeting. I covered the Davis and Wilson leaked document in a 3-part series. Put simply, the document revealed Wilson's failed efforts in 1997 to gain access to an unacknowledged special access program, which he had learned involved a corporation studying a retrieved UFO/extraterrestrial craft. Wilson had hoped Davis could shed light on what was happening in the corporate reverse engineering program. While it is highly likely that parts of the 15-page document were included in Davis' classified briefings to congressional staffers and Pentagon officials, we don't know what conclusions Davis had reached about what Wilson had confidentially shared with him. The leaked document focused on Wilson's experiences rather than what Davis knew about the topic. Consequently, an interview given by Davis on May 10, 2019, 5 months before his briefing to congressional staffers, where he gave his evaluation of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, becomes highly significant. The interview gives us a very good idea of what Davis told Congress and the Pentagon, which has now been made an issue of national importance due to the New York Times story and the looming intelligence community report destined to emerge in early 2021. In fact, a strong case can be made that Davis briefings will be used as the fulcrum of a UFO/UAP disclosure narrative that will emerge in early 2021 with the release of the unclassified intelligence UAP report to Congress. This is where there is much in what Davis told congressional staffers and Pentagon officials that raises alarming red flags that a limited hangout is being prepared over classified programs involving the retrieval and reverse engineering of crashed UFOs. While the truth will be told of the non-earthly origin of some retrieved UFOs, the unsuccessful reverse engineering of such craft by major aerospace corporations will be hidden from the public, along with the existence of visiting extraterrestrial life. What follows is my analysis of Davis's comments in the interview he conducted with Alejandro Rojas from Open Minds TV, which is available both in audio form on YouTube and as a rough transcript from an automated translation. I have corrected Rojas's rough transcript using the original interview in my extracts below, which include the YouTube timestamps. In discussing the origins of the 3 videos showing UFO craft videotaped by Navy pilots in 2004 and 2015 and officially acknowledged as genuine by the Department of the Navy, Davis declares such advanced technology has not been developed by any government or nation. Quote, "In a matter of 3 to 5 seconds, you're not basically talking about human technology. There is no Russian or Chinese or North Korean or Iranian or anybody else. No NATO or any other alliance or non-alliance country, non-allied countries have any sort of technology that can perform the way these Tic Tacs were found to be performing. The things we're seeing are not shaped in the usual typical way that we humans would shape them. So you got to come up with another hypothesis, and the only hypothesis is something unknown, and then it's a good chance that it's not human technology." End quote. Davis goes on to assert that the UFOs are operating on a new physics and humanity currently doesn't have the means to replicate this. Quote, "In other words, they don't. The objects don't follow the aerodynamic rules of engineering, okay? They just don't. And that's driven by physics, and they are not saying that they're breaking the laws of physics. So don't quote me on anything having to do with while they're operating on a new physics. We have an event, or no, they're breaking the laws of physics. It is possible to operate on the physics we haven't invented or haven't discovered yet. That's possible. We don't know. So anyway, the point is that these things are operating there, and you go way outside the envelope of our engineering and physics technologies. And I can guarantee you that no laws of physics are broken whatsoever." End quote. Davis declares that the UFOs and their advanced flight capacities are not something that can be manufactured given the present level of technological development on Earth. Quote, "And these things, they don't look like anything that we can manufacture on Earth. So we don't have the manufacturing or industrial technology for it. We don't have the engineering for it. In other words, the blueprints and designs to get something shaped like air fighter sized piece of candy mouth bed and get that to fly through the air stably and do the wonderful things that they do in the years reported by the F-18 pilots associated with the Nimitz carrier strike group." End quote. Davis is then asked about the truth of reports of UFO crashes and whether the craft have been retrieved for classified studies. He answers, quote, "There have been crashes. The superpowers on the Earth have had their share of crashes, and they have recovered the vehicles from their crashes." End quote. Davis goes on to explain how the truth about classified studies of recovered alien spacecraft is kept from most public officials. Quote, "So yeah, they may have that technology. We do too. And it's a very super sensitive topic because it's something that your listeners, you're probably going to be shocked at. Probably a minute fraction. It's like less than 1/1000th or 1/100,000th of the people with the need to know access, need to know authorization and security clearances to be involved with that type of work are the only ones that know. The vast majority of the rest of the government really doesn't know, and that's why one hand, like the right hand, doesn't know what the left hand is doing." End quote. Davis was likely referring to the process whereby even senior military officials like Admiral Wilson with high-level security clearances and need-to-know authorization was still denied access to classified studies of retrieved non-earthly spacecraft. Davis elaborates on the complexity of the security clearances system in finding the truth about what's happening in unacknowledged special access programs. Quote, because of the stovepipe thing that goes on in compartmentalized programs, you just can't knock on doors and say, hey, here's who I am. I got clearances, but not the right ones. I don't have a need to know, but I want to know. So can you tell me you're going to be lied to? Because that's the rule. You don't want to tell the enemy anything. When this guy is knocking on your door asking you about UFO crashes, could be an asset for the Soviet Union, or the Russian Federation, or the Chinese PLA, or the nincompoops over in Iran and North Korea, and so forth. So you know, even if it's an American, you still don't want to answer that question because you don't know who they are, and you're not supposed to be revealing that information. So it takes a lot of hard tracking and digging after working, and it can take years and years and years. And then you develop the security clearances and the authorization for you to know that appropriately, allow you access to that information. Then you find out, hey, yeah, it's there, it's true. On the other hand, sometimes the information does come out on its own, but it doesn't come out in the way that ufology likes to fantasize about it. It comes out only to specific people who have specific talents or skills, who have security clearances. They may not have the need to know, but they could have the need to know if they were presented with that requirement. End quote. At this stage in his interview, Davis comments on the Disclosure Project witnesses that Dr. Stephen Greer arranged to come forward in 2001 in a groundbreaking press conference. According to Davis, most of Greer's witnesses were crackpots and just noise when it came to identifying the genuine signal in the available public information on retrieved UFOs. Quote, a good majority of them were crackpots. They were phonies, but there was a small number of them that were the real deal, and so he successfully picked up a very small number of them. You got some information, and now as to the veracity and quality of that information, that's another story. But he did get some interesting information. The information was not verifiable. In other words, once people looked into it, they said, yeah, this is realistic. Whereas a good chunk of his disclosure witnesses, you know, they had a middle of the road guys. They had some information, but it was too purple. It was just anecdotal. And then you had the guys that were real liars. He's got a chunk of liars out there. I don't know how much effort he spent on vetting any of these people, and I'm not going to name names of who they are. It's not important because the fact that they have no real information means it's noise. We're dealing with signal. We're interested in signal and science, folks, not the noise. Check the noise. End quote. Next, Davis went on to elaborate on Greer's witnesses who claimed to have first-hand knowledge of crash retrieval operations. Quote, so he did have a small signal of people that had verifiable information. They came forward, they gave him information that was freely given to him, but it was after the fact. It was never expected that it could be acted upon. The people that gave him information weren't directly involved with the crash retrieval at all. They actually were either peripheral or they heard it from somebody reliable. So the vertical information was high quality, but they were not first-hand people. End quote. Davis is here suggesting, for example, that Clifford Stone, a 22-year US Army veteran who was interviewed by Greer and claimed to have first-hand knowledge of multiple crashed UFOs retrieved by the US military, was a crackpot and liar. There are many reasons to dispute Davis's information when it comes to Stone's testimony, who has been successfully interviewed many times over several decades and has maintained the same story with consistency and sincerity. Davis provides no evidence that Stone or other Disclosure Project witnesses are lying or crackpots. Consequently, his assertions need to be considered as unverified or misinformed. This is a major red flag that Davis' testimony may be part of a limited hangout that is being unveiled to the American and world publics through the New York Times, arguably the most important media organ of the CIA and the deep state. The most significant aspect of Davis's interview is his assertion that UFO crash retrievals were part of a small, unsuccessful program that was terminated in 1989 around the time the famed whistleblower Bob Lazar emerged with his experiences claiming something very similar had occurred during his time at the S4 facility at Area 51. This article is to be continued in part 2. This has been Dr. Michael Salla with exopolitics.org. I wish to announce a 4-hour webinar intensive I'm going to hold on August 22 on the topic How the Deep State Plans to Hide the Truth about Secret Space Programs and ET Life. Please visit my website for more information. Thank you for listening and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Aloha.